A single boot print marked the mud, pointing uphill toward the German line. 0320 hours. Monte Cassino. Corporal Diaz listened to the sound coming from the crater. Someone breathing, ragged, wet. The voice had been calling for help for 2 hours. Now it was just breathing. Diaz knew the voice. Martinez. They had grown up 3 blocks apart in San Antonio. The crater sat 80 yards forward, directly between 2 German machine gun nests. Battalion had already written Martinez off. No one goes after a dead man, but Diaz counted the seconds between flares. 45. Enough time if he moved fast and stayed low. His squad told him to wait for dawn. Wait and Martinez would be gone. Diaz had made a promise to Martinez's mother before they shipped out. Bring him home. The next flare popped. Diaz tightened his helmet strap. 45 seconds. He crawled forward into the dark. The mud was cold. It soaked through Diaz's uniform in seconds. He kept his rifle across his forearms. Crawling with a weapon was an art. Too high and you got shot. Too low, and the rifle jammed with mud. Diaz had learned this in North Africa. He had practiced it in Sicily. Now he used it to stay alive in Italy. The ground was churned from artillery. Shell holes every few feet. Bodies in some of them. Equipment in others. Diaz tried not to think about what his hands were touching. He focused on moving forward. 1 foot, then the other. Steady, quiet, invisible. The texture of the mud changed as he moved. Near the American line, it was soft, almost liquid. Weeks of boots and rain had turned it to soup. Farther forward, it became thicker. Clay mixed with shale. It clung to Diaz's uniform, added weight, made movement harder. His elbows dug trenches in the muck. His knees left deep impressions. Anyone looking could track his path, could see where he had been, where he was going. Diaz hoped the Germans were not looking. Hope was all he had. His hands found pieces of equipment as he crawled. A canteen, dented, empty. He pushed it aside. An ammunition belt. German. The brass was tarnished. Old. Maybe weeks, maybe months. The battle for Monte Cassino had been raging since January. It was March now. 2 months of grinding combat. Bodies and equipment littered the landscape. Evidence of failed attacks. Shattered units. Men who tried and died. Diaz would be one more piece of evidence if this went wrong. One more body in the mud. One more cautionary tale. The German flares came on a schedule. Diaz had been watching for 3 hours. Every 45 seconds. Like clockwork. The Germans were disciplined that way. They followed patterns. Patterns could be exploited. Diaz had 45 seconds of darkness between each flare. That meant he could cover maybe 10 yards per interval. 80 yards to the crater. 8 intervals. 6 minutes if nothing went wrong. Everything always went wrong. Diaz heard Martinez breathing. The sound was wet, labored, like breathing through a straw. That meant chest wound. Probably lung. Martinez might have hours. He might have minutes. There was no way to know without seeing the wound. Diaz had basic first aid training. Everyone did, but chest wounds were complicated. They required real medics, real hospitals, not a corporal crawling through mud in the dark. The squad had argued about this. Sergeant Kowalski said it was suicide. Martinez was gone, done. The Germans had him zeroed in. Anyone who went after him would die too. Better to lose 1 man than 2. Kowalski was not being cruel. He was being practical. That was his job. Keep the squad alive. Keep them functional. Sentiment got soldiers killed. Diaz understood that. He also did not care. Private Chen had sided with Kowalski. He said they should wait for dawn, get artillery support, smoke rounds, then go in with covering fire. That made tactical sense. It also meant Martinez would be dead by dawn. Chen knew that. Everyone knew that. But Chen was thinking about the mission. The squad, the bigger picture. Diaz was thinking about a promise to a mother in San Antonio. about 3 blocks of neighborhood, about growing up together. The bigger picture could wait. Only Private Jackson had supported Diaz. Jackson was from Alabama, quiet kid, good soldier. He said if it was him out there he would want someone to try. Kowalski had asked if Jackson was volunteering. Jackson said no. He said it was stupid, but he understood why Diaz was doing it. Kowalski had accepted that. He told Diaz he had 6 minutes. If Diaz was not back in 6 minutes, the squad was pulling back. They could not risk the position for 1 man or 2. Diaz had agreed. 6 minutes was more than he expected. Diaz checked his watch. 0321 hours. He had been crawling for 1 minute. 1 interval. He estimated he had covered 12 yards. Better than planned. The next flare popped. Diaz pressed himself flat. The light was harsh, white. It washed out all shadows. Diaz closed his eyes. Looking at the flare would ruin his night vision. He counted the seconds. The flare burned for about 15 seconds. Then darkness. Diaz waited 3 more seconds. Let his eyes adjust. Then he crawled. His hands found something soft. Diaz froze. He opened his eyes. A body. German. The soldier was face down in the mud. Diaz could see the grey uniform. The helmet. The man had been dead for at least a day, maybe more. The smell confirmed it. Diaz moved around the body. He tried not to think about who the soldier had been, whether he had family, whether anyone was crawling through mud to save him. Those thoughts were distractions. Distractions got you killed. The crater was closer now. Diaz could hear Martinez better. The breathing had changed. Faster. Shallower. That was not good. It meant Martinez was going into shock. Or worse. Diaz pushed harder. He covered 15 yards in the next interval. The mud was thicker here. It sucked at his elbows. His knees. Every movement took effort. Diaz ignored the strain. He focused on Martinez, on the promise, on getting there in time. Another flare. Diaz went flat. This time he was exposed. No shell hole to hide in. Just open ground. He pressed his face into the mud. The light swept over him. Diaz held his breath. If the Germans spotted movement, they would fire. Machine gun, rifle, maybe a grenade. Diaz would be dead before he heard the shot. The flare died. Darkness returned. Diaz exhaled. He crawled faster. He reached the crater at 0325 hours. 4 minutes. 2 intervals ahead of schedule. Diaz slid over the lip. The crater was maybe 8 feet across, 4 feet deep. Martinez was at the bottom. He lay on his side. His uniform was dark with blood. Too much blood. Diaz crawled down beside him. He said Martinez's name. Quiet. Barely a whisper. Martinez opened his eyes. He tried to speak. No words came. Just blood. It bubbled from his mouth. Lung puncture. Definite. Diaz rolled Martinez onto his back. He checked the wound. Left side. Below the ribs. Entry wound. Diaz felt Martinez's back. Exit wound. That was good. The round had gone through. No fragments, but the lung was compromised. Martinez was drowning in his own blood. Diaz had maybe 10 minutes. Maybe less. He pulled out his first aid kit. Sulfur powder. Bandages. Morphine. The basics. Not enough for this, but it would have to be. Martinez's skin was pale, almost grey. His lips were blue. Signs of shock. Loss of blood. Impaired oxygen. Diaz needed to work fast. He tore open Martinez's uniform. The entry wound was small, maybe 9 millimeter. Rifle round. The exit wound was larger. Ragged. The bullet had tumbled. Done more damage going out than coming in. That was typical. Diaz had seen it before. Too many times. The wound bubbled when Martinez breathed. Sucking chest wound. Air going where it should not. Collapsing the lung. Diaz needed to seal it. He grabbed the cellophane wrapper from a bandage. Placed it over the wound. Taped 3 sides. Left one side open. One-way valve. Let air out. Not in. Basic field medicine. It might work, might not, but it was all Diaz had. Martinez coughed. More blood. His eyes focused on Diaz. Recognition, relief, fear, all mixed together. He tried to speak again. This time words came, weak, breathy. He asked if he was dying. Diaz said no. Martinez said Diaz was a terrible liar. Always had been. Diaz smiled despite himself. Martinez was right. Diaz could not lie to save his life. Could not bluff at poker. Could not tell a girl she looked nice when she did not. Some people had that gift. Diaz did not. Martinez knew that. Had known it since they were kids. That honesty was why they were friends. No games, no pretense, just truth. Even when truth hurt. Diaz packed the wounds. Front and back. He wrapped the bandages tight. Martinez gasped. The pain was intense. Diaz gave him morphine. Half a syringe. Not the full dose. Martinez needed to stay conscious. Unconscious men could not help with their own rescue. Diaz needed Martinez awake. Aware, able to move. Even a little, the morphine would take the edge off. Not all the way, just enough. Martinez whispered something. Diaz leaned close. Martinez said he knew Diaz would come. Diaz said of course. They were family. Not blood, but close enough. Martinez tried to smile. Blood stained his teeth. He said his mother would be mad if Diaz let him die in Italy. Diaz said he was not planning to. Martinez said good, then he passed out. The morphine, or blood loss, or both. Diaz checked his pulse. Weak but steady. Martinez was still alive. That was what mattered. Diaz looked up at the crater rim. The Germans were close, maybe 50 yards to the left, maybe 60 to the right. 2 machine gun positions. They had overlapping fields of fire. That was why Battalion had written Martinez off. The crater sat in the kill zone. Perfect coverage. No blind spots. Anyone trying to leave would be cut down. Diaz had known this before he started crawling. He had come anyway. Now he had to figure out how to leave. With Martinez, without getting killed. The math did not work. But Diaz had never been good at math. Another flare popped. Diaz ducked below the crater rim. The light was bright. He heard voices. German, talking, laughing. They were relaxed. Confident. They owned this ground. They knew it. Diaz listened. He tried to pick up words. His German was limited. Basic phrases. Mostly curses. He heard one word clearly. Russian. Smoking. The Germans were taking a cigarette break. Diaz filed that away. Information. Could be useful. Could be nothing. He would figure it out later. The flare died. Diaz checked Martinez. Still unconscious. Pulse still weak. Still alive. Diaz calculated. Martinez weighed about 160 pounds. Plus gear. Call it 180 total. Diaz could carry that. But not fast. And not while crawling. He would have to drag Martinez. That meant noise. Movement. Exposure. All the things that got soldiers killed. Diaz needed a better plan. He did not have one. He tried the radio. Handheld SCR 536. Walkie-talkie. Short range. Maybe a mile. The squad was 800 yards back. Well within range. Diaz keyed the mic. Whispered his call sign. Static. He tried again. Nothing. The radio was dead. Water damage. Or mud. Or just bad luck. Radios failed in combat. Everyone knew that. Plans always assumed the radio would work. Reality proved otherwise. Diaz was on his own. He thought about the promise to Mrs. Martinez. She had grabbed his hand on the transport ship. Right before they deployed, she said her son was all she had. Her husband was dead. Killed in a car accident in 1940. Ramon was her only child. Her reason for living. She made Diaz promise. Swear, bring him home. Keep him safe. Diaz had promised. He had meant it. Now he was in a crater in Italy trying to keep that promise. Mrs. Martinez would never know about this moment. about the mud, the blood, the Germans smoking 50 yards away. She would only know if Diaz succeeded or failed. Success meant her son came home. Failure meant a telegram. Diaz preferred success. The promise haunted him. Mrs. Martinez had looked into his eyes when she asked. Her hands were calloused, rough. She worked as a seamstress, long hours, low pay, keeping the house, raising Ramon alone. She had sacrificed everything for her son, gave him opportunities she never had. Ramon was the first in their family to finish high school. He could have gone to college, could have avoided the draft, but he enlisted, wanted to serve, wanted to make his mother proud. Mrs. Martinez understood. She did not like it, but she understood. That was why she grabbed Diaz, because Diaz and Ramon had grown up together, played together, fought together, been brothers in all but blood. If anyone could bring Ramon home, it was Diaz. At least that was what Mrs. Martinez believed. Diaz remembered Ramon as a kid. Small, skinny, always getting pushed around by bigger boys. Diaz had defended him, fought his battles. That was what friends did, what brothers did. Ramon got bigger, stronger. By high school he did not need defending. He could handle himself, but the bond remained. They watched each other's backs, on the playground, on the street, in bar fights. That bond followed them to the army, through basic training, through combat. Now it had brought Diaz to this crater, crawling through mud to save the kid. He had protected his whole life. Some things never changed. Some bonds never broke. This was one of them. Martinez stirred. He opened his eyes. He asked where they were. Diaz said the crater. Martinez said he remembered. He had been scouting, looking for a route through the German line. He saw movement, investigated, stepped on a mine, not a big one, just enough to throw him into the crater. Then the shooting started. 2 machine guns, maybe a rifle. Martinez could not get out. He tried. The Germans had him pinned, so he waited, hoped someone would come. Diaz came. Martinez said he was not surprised. Diaz always kept his word. Diaz asked if Martinez could move. Martinez tried to sit up. He got halfway, then gasped and fell back. He said his chest felt like fire. Diaz said that was the morphine wearing off. He gave Martinez the other half syringe. Martinez said that was all the morphine. What would Diaz use if he got hit? Diaz said he would not get hit. Martinez laughed, then coughed. Blood came up. Diaz wiped it away. He said they needed to move. Now, Martinez said he would try. The next flare popped. Diaz and Martinez stayed low. The light revealed the crater in detail. Diaz saw things he had missed in the dark. Shell fragments, spent casings, a German helmet. The helmet had a hole through the crown, probably from the same artillery that created the crater. Diaz wondered about that German soldier, whether he died instantly, whether he felt anything, whether anyone promised his mother they would bring him home. The flare died. Those thoughts died with it. Focus, move, survive. Nothing else mattered. Diaz helped Martinez sit up. Martinez gritted his teeth. Every movement was agony. Diaz could see it in his face. But Martinez did not cry out. He breathed through the pain. Short breaths, controlled. That was training. The army taught you to manage pain, to function through it. Martinez was functioning barely, but functioning. Diaz got him to the edge of the crater. Martinez looked at the distance. 80 yards. He said he could not crawl that far. Diaz said he did not have to. Diaz would pull him. Martinez asked how. Diaz said he would figure it out. Diaz tied a rope around Martinez's chest, under the arms. The rope was standard issue, 20 feet, quarter inch. Every soldier carried one. Diaz tied a bowline knot. It would hold, would not slip, would not tighten. Martinez could breathe, mostly. Diaz tested the rope. It held. He tied the other end around his own waist. Now they were connected. Diaz crawled. Martinez followed, or was pulled. Same result. They moved together, or not at all. The first interval went well. Diaz pulled. Martinez slid through the mud. They covered 8 yards. The rope worked. The system worked. Diaz allowed himself hope. Dangerous emotion. Hope made you careless. But he felt it anyway. They were moving, making progress. 1 yard at a time, the math started to work. 8 yards per interval, 10 intervals. 80 yards, 10 times 45 seconds. 7.5 minutes. Plus transition time, call it 10 minutes total. They could make it. The second interval was harder. The ground sloped upward, slight, maybe 5 degrees. But enough to matter. Diaz had to pull harder. Martinez was dead weight. Literally. The morphine had him unconscious again. That was fine. Better. Unconscious men did not scream. Screaming attracted attention. Attention attracted bullets. Diaz pulled. His shoulders burned. His legs cramped. He ignored it. Pain was temporary. Death was permanent. He chose pain. The third interval was interrupted. A flare popped early. 30 seconds instead of 45. The Germans changed their pattern. Diaz cursed silently. He went flat. Martinez was exposed, half in a shell hole, half out, visible, obvious. If the Germans looked, they would see him. Diaz held still, prayed. He was not religious. But prayer cost nothing. The flare burned. Diaz counted seconds. 20. The flare died. No gunfire. The Germans had not looked. Or they looked and saw nothing. Or they saw but did not care. Wounded enemy. No threat. Let him die. Diaz did not care. Why? He just crawled. The fourth interval brought them to a dead American soldier, private. Diaz did not recognize him. Different unit. The body was fresh, hours old, not days. The soldier had been shot in the head, clean kill, instant. The private's rifle lay beside him. Montgarand. Diaz checked it. Loaded, 7 rounds. Diaz already had a rifle, but 2 rifles meant options. He took the Garand, slung it across his back. Extra weight, but worth it. More firepower, better odds. The calculus of survival. The fifth interval revealed the problem. German patrol, 3 soldiers, moving along the line, checking positions. Standard procedure. They walked slow, relaxed. They talked, smoked, acted like they owned the mountain. They did, for now. The patrol would pass within 20 yards of Diaz and Martinez, if they looked, if they saw, if they investigated. Game over. Diaz had 2 rifles. 14 rounds total. 3 Germans. He could kill them, probably. But gunfire would alert the machine gun nests. Then the whole position would open up. Diaz and Martinez would be torn apart. Not an option. Diaz studied the patrol. The leader was a sergeant. Older, maybe 30. Experienced. He walked with confidence. Authority. The other 2 were younger. Privates. They followed the sergeant. Listened when he spoke. Laughed at his jokes. Standard dynamic. The sergeant carried an MP-40 submachine gun. The privates had Kar 98K rifles, bolt action, 5 rounds each. If it came to a fight, Diaz would take the sergeant first, eliminate the leadership, the experience. The privates might hesitate, might run. That would give Diaz time. Not much, but some. Everything came down to seconds. Decisions, training. Diaz had trained for this. He hoped he would not need it. The patrol came closer. 15 yards. Diaz could see their faces now. The sergeant had a scar, ran from his eyebrow to his jaw. Old wound, healed but visible. A story there. Everyone had stories. The privates looked young, too young, maybe 18, maybe younger. The Germans were scraping the bottom. Old men and boys, that was all they had left. The Allies were winning. Slowly, but winning. These soldiers knew it. Diaz could see it in how they moved. Cautious, nervous, not the swagger of 1940, not the confidence of 1941, just tired men trying to survive, like everyone else on this mountain. 10 yards. Diaz pressed himself flatter, made himself part of the earth. He controlled his breathing. Slow, shallow, silent. Breathing was loud in the quiet. The human body was loud. Heart, lungs, joints, blood, all of it made noise. Soldiers learned to minimize it, to become ghosts. Diaz was good at being a ghost. He had to be. His life depended on it. Martinez's life depended on it. Diaz held perfectly still, became stone, became mud, became nothing. The patrol passed, 5 yards away, close enough to touch, close enough to smell, the sergeant's cigarette, the private's sweat, the oil on their weapons. Diaz memorized it all. Information, always gather information. Never know when it would matter. The patrol disappeared into the darkness. Diaz waited, counted to 60, made sure they were gone. Then he exhaled, released the tension. His muscles screamed. Holding still took energy. Effort, more than moving sometimes, but it worked. The patrol had not seen them, had not investigated, had moved on. Diaz and Martinez were still alive, still invisible, still in the game. The 6th interval brought them halfway. 40 yards covered, 40 to go. Diaz was exhausted. His arms shook. His legs were numb. The rope burned where it rubbed his waist. He tasted blood. He had bitten his tongue at some point. Did not remember when. Did not matter. He checked Martinez, still breathing. Pulse still weak. Still alive. That was enough. Diaz crawled. The 7th interval almost killed them. The ground exploded. Mortar. German. Not close. Maybe 30 yards to the right. But close enough to feel the blast wave rolled over them. Dirt rained down. Diaz's ears rang. He could not hear, could not think, just reflex. He covered Martinez with his body, shielded him from the debris. Another mortar hit. Closer. 20 yards. Shrapnel zipped overhead. Diaz felt something tug his pack. He did not look. Looking took time. Time got you killed. The mortars stopped. 3 rounds. Standard fire mission. The Germans were shooting blind. Harassing fire, keeping the Americans nervous. It worked. The ringing in Diaz's ears was intense, like a high-pitched whine, constant, maddening. He had experienced it before. Artillery too close, grenades in confined spaces. The ringing always came, always lasted. Minutes, hours, sometimes days. Diaz shook his head, tried to clear it. Did not work. Never did. He would have to function through it, like everything else in war. Pain, fear, exhaustion. You functioned through it or you died. There were no other options. He checked Martinez. Still breathing, pulse still present. The bandage on his chest was soaked through, fresh blood. The morphine was keeping him unconscious. That was good. Martinez did not need to experience this, did not need to feel the fear, the terror of being helpless while mortars rained down. Being conscious would not help him survive, would only make the experience worse. Better to sleep, better to dream, better to be somewhere else. Anywhere else. Diaz would handle the reality, would get them both through. That was his job, his promise, his burden. The mud around them was torn up. Fresh craters, smoking, hot. Shrapnel had cut furrows in the ground. Some pieces were the size of Diaz's fist, jagged, sharp, deadly. One piece had embedded itself in a corpse 3 feet away. The body was German, old, maybe from the first assaults in January. The shrapnel had hit the corpse in the spine, would have severed it, would have killed instantly, if the soldier had not already been dead. Strange mercy, to be killed twice, once by war, once by chance. Diaz pulled his eyes away, focused on what mattered: movement, escape, survival. He waited for his hearing to return. It came back slowly, first ringing, then muffled sounds, then clarity. He heard Martinez groaning. Good, alive, conscious. Sort of. Diaz checked him for new wounds, ran his hands over Martinez's body. Arms, legs, torso, head. No new holes, no new blood. Lucky. They were both lucky. Luck only lasted so long. Diaz had used plenty today. Eventually it would run out. The law of averages. Probability. The longer you stayed in the kill zone, the higher the chance you died. Statistics. Mathematics. Diaz was never good at math, but he understood this equation. It was simple, brutal, true. He kept moving. The 8th interval brought them to friendly lines. Almost 50 yards from the American position. Diaz could see the outline of the trench. Helmets, rifles, his squad, safety, so close. But 50 yards was still 50 yards, and the Germans were still watching, still waiting. Diaz needed to let his squad know, signal them, but radio was dead. Shouting would bring fire. He needed another way. He thought about it, came up with nothing. Then Martinez spoke. Martinez said he had a flare, signal flare. He carried it for marking targets. Red, visible for miles. If Diaz fired it, the squad would know. They would provide covering fire. Diaz could make the final dash. Martinez handed him the flare gun. Small, single shot. Diaz loaded it, aimed straight up, fired. The flare arced into the sky, brilliant red, impossible to miss. The German line erupted. Machine guns, rifles, mortars, everything. Rounds tore up the ground around Diaz and Martinez. The American line returned fire. 50 rifles, 2 machine guns. The volume was incredible, deafening. Diaz used the chaos. He pulled Martinez fast. No stealth, just speed. 30 yards, 20, 10. Hands reached down, grabbed Martinez, pulled him into the trench, grabbed Diaz, pulled him in two. They tumbled into the bottom, safe, alive, filthy, bleeding, but safe. The chaos was total, complete. Sound became physical. The crack of rifles, the stutter of machine guns, the thud of mortars. Each noise hit like a hammer, pounded through Diaz's skull, through his chest. He felt it in his bones, in his teeth. War was loud. Everyone knew that. But knowing and experiencing were different. The volume in combat was beyond description, beyond comprehension. Until you lived it, then you understood. Then you knew why veterans went deaf, why they flinched at car backfires, why fireworks made them dive for cover. The sound of war changed you, rewired your brain, made you permanently alert, permanently damaged, permanently different. The dash was pure instinct. No thought, no planning, just action. Diaz's legs burned, his lungs screamed. His arms felt like they were being torn from his shoulders. The rope cut into his waist. Drew blood. He ignored it. Pain was later. Survival was now. He counted yards. 25, 20, 15. Each number was a victory. Each yard was life. 10 yards. 5. Hands grabbed him. Strong, urgent. They pulled. Diaz let them. He had nothing left. No strength. No will. Just empty. Used up. Spent. He fell into the trench. Collapsed. His vision went grey. Not black. Just grey. Fading. He fought it. Forced air into his lungs. Forced blood to his brain. The grey receded. Colour returned. He was alive. Martinez was alive. The promise held. For now. The Americans kept firing, suppressing the German positions, keeping them from maneuvering, from exploiting the situation. Professional, disciplined. By the book, Kowalski was running the show, giving orders, directing fire. He saw Diaz, nodded. Nothing more. No time for congratulations. The fight was still happening, still dangerous. Diaz understood. He grabbed his rifle, checked the action. Mud, always mud. He cleared it, worked the bolt, loaded a round, aimed at a German muzzle flash, fired. The rifle kicked. The flash disappeared. Diaz did not know if he hit anything. Did not matter. The goal was suppression. Volume. Make the Germans keep their heads down. Give Martinez time. Give the medic time. Time was everything. Time was life. Sergeant Kowalski appeared. He asked if Diaz was insane. Diaz said probably. Kowalski shook his head. He said he was writing Diaz up for a medal or a court-martial. He had not decided which. Diaz said he would take either. Kowalski laughed. He called for a medic. Doc Williams arrived. He checked Martinez. Said it was bad, but not fatal. The lung could be saved. Martinez needed surgery. Real hospital. Williams could stabilize him. Keep him alive until evacuation. That was all. Diaz said that was enough. Martinez grabbed Diaz's hand. He said thank you. Diaz said he made a promise. Martinez said most people break promises. Diaz said he was not most people. Martinez smiled, said he knew. Then he passed out. Williams went to work. Plasma, bandages, more morphine, professional, efficient. Diaz watched for a minute. Then Kowalski pulled him away, said Diaz needed checking too. Diaz said he was fine. Kowalski said he was covered in blood. Some of it was probably his. Diaz looked down. His uniform was shredded. He had cuts everywhere. Small, superficial, probably from shrapnel. He had not noticed. Adrenaline did that. Masked pain. Made you invincible, until it wore off. Then you felt everything. Williams patched Diaz up. Cleaned the cuts. Applied sulfur powder. Wrapped the worst ones. Said Diaz was lucky. Nothing major. Diaz would be sore for a week. But functional, combat ready. Williams asked how Diaz got through the German line. Diaz said he crawled. Williams said that was insane. Diaz agreed. Williams said insane men made good soldiers. Diaz said or dead ones. Williams did not argue. The squad gathered around. Chen said he thought Diaz was dead. Jackson said he knew Diaz would make it. Kowalski said it was the stupidest thing he had ever seen. Also the bravest. Diaz said it was not about bravery. It was about keeping a promise. Kowalski said promises got soldiers killed. Diaz said some promises were worth it. Kowalski considered that, then nodded. He said maybe Diaz was right. Maybe some things mattered more than tactics, than missions, than winning. Diaz said he did not know about that. He just knew he had to try. Kowalski said that was enough. The squad looked different to Diaz now. He had fought beside them for months, knew their names, their hometowns, their stories, but something had changed in the past hour. A shift. These men had covered him, risked themselves to bring him and Martinez back. They had not hesitated, had not questioned. When the flare went up, they fired. Every rifle, every machine gun, without orders, without prompting. That was trust. That was loyalty. That was what made a squad more than just a collection of soldiers, made them a unit. A family. Diaz felt that bond now, deeper than before, forged in mud and blood and terror, unbreakable. Jackson approached. He held out a canteen, fresh water. Diaz drank. The water was cold, clean, tasted like metal, like heaven. He drank half, handed it back. Jackson said to finish it. Diaz had earned it. Diaz finished it. His throat was raw, torn up from breathing hard, from tasting mud. The water helped. Not much, but some. Jackson refilled the canteen from a jerry can, handed it back, said Diaz should drink more. Stay hydrated. Dehydration killed as many soldiers as bullets. Maybe more, just slower, less dramatic. Diaz drank again. Jackson was right. About hydration. About everything. Jackson was smart that way. Saw things others missed. Paid attention. That quality made him valuable. Made him likely to survive, if luck held. They moved Martinez to an aid station at 0410 hours. 50 minutes after Diaz started crawling. Williams went with him, said he would make sure Martinez got proper care. Diaz thanked him. Williams said it was his job. Diaz said Williams was good at his job. Williams said he tried. That was all anyone could do. Try. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it did not. Tonight it worked. That was worth celebrating. Diaz agreed, but he was too tired to celebrate. He sat down in the trench. His body finally understood it was safe. The adrenaline drained away. Exhaustion hit like a truck. Diaz leaned against the trench wall, closed his eyes, slept. He woke at 0600 hours. Dawn. The mountain was visible now. Monte Cassino, the monastery sat on top, destroyed by Allied bombing. The Germans still held it, still used it. Ruins made good defensive positions. The Allies were grinding away at it. 1 yard at a time, 1 man at a time. The cost was tremendous. Thousands dead, thousands more wounded. For what? A mountain, a pile of rocks. Strategic value. Diaz understood the strategic value. He also thought it was madness, but understanding and agreeing were different things. Diaz followed orders, fought, survived. That was his role. Let the generals worry about strategy. Kowalski appeared with coffee. Real coffee. Hot, strong. Diaz drank it. The warmth helped. Kowalski sat beside him, said the battalion commander wanted to see Diaz. Diaz asked why. Kowalski said probably to yell at him, or promote him. Maybe both. Diaz said he preferred neither. Kowalski said tough. Diaz had made himself visible. Visible men attracted attention. Attention from commanders, good and bad. Diaz would have to deal with it. Diaz finished his coffee, stood. His body protested. Everything hurt. He ignored it. Pain was weakness, leaving the body. Also the drill sergeant said, Diaz thought pain was just pain, but moving helped. Sort of. The battalion commander was a lieutenant colonel. Diaz did not know his name. Officers came and went. Soldiers remembered sergeants, not colonels. The colonel sat in a command post. Bunker, reinforced. Maps on the walls. Radio operators. Staff officers. All the machinery of command. The colonel looked tired. Everyone looked tired. Sleep was a luxury, like hot food, like dry socks. The colonel gestured for Diaz to sit. Diaz sat. The colonel asked what happened. Diaz told him. Simple, direct. No embellishment. The colonel listened, asked questions. Diaz answered. Honest, complete. The colonel nodded, said Diaz was either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. Diaz did not disagree. The colonel said he was recommending Diaz for the Silver Star, 3rd highest decoration. Gallantry in action. Diaz said that was not necessary. The colonel said it was not about necessity, it was about recognition, setting an example, showing soldiers what right looked like. Diaz said he just kept a promise. The colonel said that was the point. Promises mattered. Honor mattered. Doing the right thing even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. The army needed more men like Diaz. Men who put people over tactics. The colonel dismissed him. Diaz saluted. Left. He did not feel like a hero. He felt like a corporal who got lucky. There was a difference. Diaz returned to his squad. They had moved to a new position, closer to the German line, 50 yards forward. The advance was constant, slow, but constant. Every day, a few yards. Every week, a few hundred. At this rate, they would take the mountain by summer. Maybe, if they did not all die first. Diaz checked his gear. Rifle, ammunition, grenades, rations, water. Everything he needed to stay alive. For now, tomorrow would bring new problems, new missions, new chances to die. But tomorrow was not today. Today, Diaz was alive. Martinez was alive. The promise was kept. That was enough. Chen approached, said he was sorry for doubting Diaz, said he should have supported him. Diaz said Chen was thinking tactically. That was his job. Chen said tactics were not everything. Sometimes you had to think about people, about relationships, about promises. Diaz said that was a hard balance. Chen agreed, said he was still learning. Diaz said they were all still learning. War was a classroom, brutal, unforgiving, but effective. You learned fast or you died. Chen had learned, that was good. He would survive, probably, if luck held. Jackson came by, said he heard about the Silver Star, said Diaz deserved it. Diaz said medals did not matter. Jackson said they mattered to the people who cared about you, to your family, to history. Diaz would be remembered. His children would know what he did. Their children, that legacy mattered. Diaz had not thought about it that way. He did not have children, not yet, maybe someday. If he survived, if he found someone, if the war ended, too many ifs. Diaz pushed those thoughts away. Focus on now. Survive today. Worry about tomorrow when it came. Kowalski gathered the squad, said they had new orders. Patrol, forward reconnaissance. Find German positions. Report back. Standard mission. Dangerous. But standard. Diaz checked his rifle. 7 rounds. He reloaded. 8 rounds. Better. The captured Garand had 7 more. 15 total. Plus grenades. Plus a knife. Diaz was a walking arsenal. It made him feel slightly better. Slightly. Not much. But some. The squad moved out at 0700 hours. Single file. Spaced. Professional. They were good soldiers. Experienced. Trained. Diaz trusted them with his life. He had to. That was the nature of infantry. You lived together, fought together, died together. The squad was family, not blood, but close enough. They moved through the rubble. Monte Cassino was destroyed, bombed, shelled. Nothing remained intact. Just ruins. Piles of stone, twisted metal. The smell was terrible. Death, decay, smoke. Diaz breathed through his mouth. It helped. Not much, but some. They passed bodies. German, American, Italian civilians. War did not discriminate. It killed everyone. Young, old, soldier, civilian, indiscriminate, efficient, thorough. Diaz had seen too many bodies. He was numb to it. Desensitized. That scared him. What did it mean when dead bodies felt normal? When stepping over corpses was routine? Diaz did not have an answer. He kept moving. The terrain was treacherous. Every step was calculated, tested. The rubble shifted, stones rolled underfoot. One wrong step meant a twisted ankle, a broken leg. Injury meant evacuation. Evacuation meant leaving the squad. Diaz could not afford that. The squad needed experienced soldiers, leaders, men who had survived, who knew the tricks, the shortcuts, the ways to stay alive. Diaz was one of those men. He moved carefully, deliberately, set an example. The others followed, mimicked his movements. His caution, that was leadership. Not speeches, not orders, just example. Show them how, they would learn, or they would die. Those were the options. The destroyed buildings created a maze. Walls stood at odd angles. Floors had collapsed into basements. Staircases led nowhere. The monastery complex had been massive. Hundreds of rooms. Courtyards. Chapels. Libraries. All gone now. Reduced to rubble. The Germans used the ruins well. Turned them into strong points. Fighting positions. Observation posts. Every pile of stones could hide a machine gun. Every collapsed wall could conceal a sniper. Diaz scanned constantly, looking for threats, for movement, for anything wrong. His eyes never stopped, never rested. That vigilance kept him alive, kept the squad alive. Relaxation was death. Attention was survival. They found evidence of recent German activity. Fresh boot prints in the dust, cigarette butts still warm, empty ration tins. The Germans had been here within the hour, maybe less. That meant they were close. Watching, waiting. Diaz signaled the squad, hand gestures, silent communication. They spread out, created space, made themselves harder targets. Professional, trained. These men knew their business. Kowalski took point. Diaz covered the rear. Jackson and Chen covered the flanks. Textbook formation. They moved like a machine. Coordinated, efficient, deadly. The patrol found a German observation post. 2 soldiers, binoculars, radio. They were calling in artillery, directing fire onto American positions. Kowalski made a decision. Take them out, quietly, no gunfire. Knives only. Diaz and Jackson volunteered. They moved close, slow, silent. The Germans did not see them, did not hear them, focused on their mission. Diaz reached the first German, grabbed him, knife to the throat. Quick, clean. The German died without a sound. Jackson took the second. Same method. Same result. 2 Germans dead. American artillery safe. For now, the Germans would send replacements. But that would take time. Every minute counted. Kowalski radioed back. Mission complete. Orders came back. Return to base. The patrol headed back. The kills bothered Diaz. Not emotionally. That response had died in North Africa. Killed in his first firefight. Buried in his first trench. What bothered him was the mechanics. The coldness, the efficiency. Diaz had killed with a knife before. 3 times. Tunisia, Sicily, Italy. Each time was easier than the last. Faster, cleaner, more professional. That progression scared him. It meant he was good at killing, that he had developed skill, expertise. Killing should not be a skill, should not improve with practice. But it did. And Diaz had practiced, enough to be efficient, enough to be deadly, enough to question what he was becoming. The German had been young, maybe 22. He had a wedding ring. Diaz saw it when he grabbed the man's hand. Gold band. Simple. Worn. Loved. Somewhere in Germany, a woman was waiting, hoping, praying. She would get a telegram soon. Or maybe just silence. Sometimes families never knew. Men just disappeared. Listed as missing. Presumed dead. That might be worse than knowing. The uncertainty. The hope that never died. The waiting that never ended. Diaz thought about that as he cleaned his knife. Wiped the blood on the German's tunic. Returned the blade to its sheath. He thought about the woman who would wait. Who would wonder. Who would hope her husband was just lost. Just captured. Just delayed. Not dead in a pile of Italian rubble with his throat cut by an American corporal who did not even know his name. Jackson was quiet after his kill. First time with a knife. He had killed before, with a rifle, with grenades. But those were distant, impersonal, abstract. The knife was intimate, close, personal. You felt the life leave, felt the body go slack, felt death happen. That was different, changed you, made it real in a way bullets never did. Diaz understood. He had been there, had experienced that shift from soldier to killer, from warrior to executioner. The line was thin, easy to cross, hard to uncross. Jackson had crossed it today. He would never go back. None of them would. That was the cost of war. Not just bodies, not just wounds, but souls, pieces of humanity left behind in the rubble, never recovered, never restored. They reached friendly lines at 0830 hours, 90 minutes. Successful patrol. No casualties. Information gathered. Enemies killed. A good morning, by war standards. Diaz reported to Kowalski. Kowalski reported to the company commander. The captain listened, nodded, dismissed them, said good work, get some rest. Next mission at 1400 hours, 6 hours. Diaz used the time to sleep, eat, clean his rifle, write a letter home, not to his family, to Mrs. Martinez, telling her Ramon was safe, wounded, but alive. recovering, would be sent home soon. Diaz kept the letter simple, did not mention the crawl, the crater, the Germans, just said Ramon was brave, did his duty, would make her proud. Diaz sealed the letter, gave it to the company clerk, said make sure it gets delivered. The clerk said he would. Diaz hoped that was true. The afternoon mission was cancelled. German counterattack. The whole line shifted. Companies repositioned. Squads reinforced. Chaos. But controlled chaos. The army was good at that. Taking confusion and creating order. Diaz moved with his squad. They occupied a trench, fortified it, waited. The Germans came at 1500 hours. Mortars first. Then, infantry. Maybe 50 men, maybe more. Hard to count. They came in waves, professional, organized, veteran troops. Diaz fired his rifle, aimed, steady. One shot, one kill. The training paid off. The Germans fell back, regrouped, came again. Diaz fired again. The captured Garand ran dry. He switched to his issued rifle, kept firing. The Germans fell back again. The attack ended at 15:30 hours. 30 minutes. Felt like 30 hours. The Germans left 20 dead on the field. The Americans lost 4. Diaz did not know them. Different company. He felt bad about that. About not knowing them. They deserved to be known. Remembered, but there were too many dead, too many names. Diaz could not remember them all. No one could. Evening came. The squad ate K rations. Cold, tasteless, but calories, energy, fuel. Diaz forced it down. He was not hungry, but he ate anyway. The body needed fuel to fight, to survive. Hunger was temporary. Starvation was permanent. Kowalski came by, said he heard from Williams. Martinez was stable. Surgery successful. Lung repaired. Martinez would live. Full recovery expected. He would be sent to a hospital in Naples, then probably shipped home. Medical discharge. The war was over for Martinez. Diaz felt relief. Deep. Profound. The promise was truly kept. Martinez would see his mother again. Would live. Would have a future. That mattered. That made everything worth it. The crawl. The risk. The terror. All worth it. Kowalski said Diaz did good. Real good. Said he was proud to have Diaz in his squad. Diaz said he was just doing his job. Kowalski said it was more than that. It was character, integrity, the things that separated good soldiers from great ones. Diaz was great. Kowalski meant that. Diaz thanked him, did not know what else to say. Compliments made him uncomfortable. He was not looking for recognition, just doing what needed to be done. What was right. Kowalski understood. He clapped Diaz on the shoulder, walked away, left Diaz to his thoughts. Diaz thought about home, San Antonio, his neighborhood, the streets he grew up on, the same streets Martinez grew up on, 3 blocks apart, close enough to be friends, far enough to have separate lives. They had played baseball together, gone to school together, worked together. Then the war came. They enlisted together, trained together, fought together. Now Martinez was going home. Diaz was staying. That was the way it worked. Some went home, some stayed, some died. The lottery of war. Diaz accepted it. He did not like it, but acceptance was not about liking. It was about acknowledging reality. The reality was Diaz would keep fighting, keep killing, keep surviving, until the war ended, or he died, whichever came first. Night fell. The mountain went quiet. Not silent, just quiet. Occasional gunfire, flares, artillery in the distance, but nothing immediate, nothing threatening. Diaz took first watch. 2 hours, he sat in the trench, rifle ready, eyes scanning the darkness, looking for movement, for threats, for anything wrong. The watch was boring. That was good. Boring meant safe. Exciting meant dying. Diaz preferred boring. His watch ended at 2200 hours. Chen took over. Diaz tried to sleep. It came eventually. Not deep, not restful. Just sleep. Better than nothing. He dreamed about the crater. About Martinez. But in the dream, Diaz did not reach him in time. The breathing stopped. Martinez died. Diaz dragged his body back anyway, delivered a corpse to the trench. Mrs. Martinez was there. She asked why Diaz did not keep his promise. Diaz had no answer. He woke up, sweating, heart pounding. He checked the time. 0200 hours. 4 hours until dawn. Diaz did not try to sleep again. He sat up, stared at the sky, waited for morning. Morning meant missions. Missions meant distraction. Distraction meant not thinking about the dream, about failure, about what could have been. Dawn came at 0600 hours. Grey light, cold, wet, typical Italian spring. The squad stirred. Breakfast, coffee, preparation. Another day of war. Kowalski briefed them. New mission. Push forward. Take the next hill. Establish defensive position. Standard infantry work. The squad moved out at 0700 hours. Diaz was ready. Rifle clean. Ammunition loaded. Mind focused. The dream faded. Reality took over. 1 foot, then the other. Climb. Fight. Survive. The routine of war. The hill was defended. Germans, maybe 20. They had machine guns, mortars, good position. High ground. The Americans attacked anyway. Orders. The squad advanced, used cover, returned fire. Professional, by the book. The fight lasted 2 hours. The Germans fell back. The hill was taken. Cost 3 Americans wounded. 1 dead. Private Morrison. Diaz did not know him well. Different squad, but same company. Morrison was young, maybe 19. From Iowa. Farmer. He had talked about going home, planting corn, raising a family. Now he would do none of that. Now he was a body on a hill, in Italy. Another name. Another casualty. Another telegram. Diaz helped carry Morrison back. It was the least he could do. Morrison deserved that respect. Every soldier did. The squad fortified the hill. Dug in, established fields of fire, made it defensible. The Germans would counterattack. They always did. High ground mattered. Both sides knew it. The fight would continue, back and forth. Attack, defend, attack again, until one side gave up or ran out of men. Whichever came first. Diaz expected the counterattack at dusk. The Germans liked attacking at dusk. Poor light, shadows, confusion. It worked. Often, the Americans would be ready. They always were. Ready did not mean safe. Just prepared. There was a difference. The counterattack came at 1800 hours. As expected. Mortars first, then infantry. 50 men, maybe more. They came hard. Fast. Committed. Veteran troops. The Americans held. Machine guns. Rifles. Grenades. Concentrated fire. Disciplined. The Germans fell back. Came again. The Americans held again. The pattern repeated. 3 waves. 3 repulsors. The Germans withdrew. Left 30 dead. The Americans lost 2. One was Chen. He took a round through the head. Instant. No pain. No suffering. Clinical. Efficient. But still dead. Diaz felt the loss. Chen was learning. Growing. Becoming a good soldier. Now he was gone. Wasted potential. Wasted life. Diaz helped wrap the body. They would bury Chen tomorrow. If there was time. If the Germans allowed it. Big if. The German assault was professional. Textbook. They used fire and movement. One element suppressed while another advanced. Leapfrogging forward, gaining ground. Maintaining pressure. These were not conscripts. Not the old men and boys Diaz had seen earlier. These were elite troops. Fallschirmjäger probably. Paratroopers. The best the Germans had. Experienced, trained, motivated. They came within 10 yards of the trench before American fire drove them back. That was close. Too close. Diaz could see their faces, see their eyes, see the determination. The professionalism. These men were good. Very good. They would keep coming, keep attacking, until they broke through or died trying. That was the paratrooper way. No retreat. No surrender. Attack until victory or death. Terrifying. Admirable. Deadly. Diaz fired methodically. Aimed shots. Controlled. One target. One round. Moved to the next. No wasted ammunition. No panic fire. Training took over. Muscle memory. His instructors would have been proud. Squeeze the trigger. Don't jerk. Follow through. Breathe. Relax. Basic marksmanship. Drill sergeant wisdom. It worked. Germans fell. Not all from Diaz's shots, but some. He did his part. Contributed to the defense. That was all anyone could ask. Do your part. Pull your weight. Keep the line. Simple, clear, achievable. War reduced everything to simple terms. Survive, kill, repeat. Philosophy had no place. Ethics were luxuries. Only results mattered. Diaz produced results. Chen's death happened fast. One moment he was firing. The next he was down. No warning. No drama. Just there. Then not there. Diaz saw it from the corner of his eye. The impact. The way Chen's head snapped back. The way his body crumpled. Death was not like the movies. Not slow. Not theatrical. Just instant. 1 second alive. Next second not. The body did not know the difference. It just stopped, ceased, ended. Chen never felt it, never knew. That was mercy. Small, cold, but mercy, better than suffering, better than lingering, better than drowning in your own blood like Martinez almost did. Diaz preferred Chen's death. If he had to choose, quick, clean, over, he hoped his own death would be similar when it came. And it would come. Everyone knew that. The only questions were when and how. Diaz hoped for quick, expected ugly. War rarely gave you what you hoped for. Jackson was shaken. He and Chen had been close. Friends. Jackson blamed himself, said he should have covered Chen better. Diaz said it was not Jackson's fault. Combat was random. Chen was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Jackson said that was not good enough. There had to be a reason, a cause, something that made sense. Diaz said war did not make sense. It just happened. Soldiers died. Some lived. Random. Chaotic. Meaningless. Jackson did not accept that. He wanted meaning. Purpose. Reason. Diaz understood. He had wanted the same thing once. Before Tunisia. Before Sicily. Before Italy. Before too many bodies. Too many names. Now Diaz knew better. Meaning was a luxury. Something civilians had. Soldiers just had survival. Jackson would learn, or he would die. Those were the options. Diaz sat with Jackson for an hour after the fight. Did not talk much, just sat. Presence mattered more than words. Jackson needed to know he was not alone, that others understood, that grief was allowed, expected, normal. The army did not train soldiers for loss, for grief, for watching friends die. That training happened in combat, on the job, brutal, unforgiving. Effective. Jackson was getting his training now, learning what every combat soldier learned eventually, that death was random, that luck mattered more than skill, that survival was a lottery. You could do everything right and still die. You could do everything wrong and still live. That lack of control was terrifying, paralyzing, unless you accepted it, embraced it, used it. Diaz had learned to accept. Jackson was learning now. The lesson hurt. They always did. Jackson asked questions. The same questions everyone asked. Why Chen? Why not someone else? What did Chen do wrong? What could have been different? Diaz answered honestly. Nothing. Chen did nothing wrong. Nothing could have been different. The round that killed Chen was fired by a German 100 yards away. The German did not know Chen, did not target him specifically, just fired at movement, at shapes, at the American line. The bullet traveled, arced, fell, hit Chen by chance. Pure random physics. Probability. Chen's position, his height, his timing, all combined in one fatal instant. Change any variable, and Chen lived. The German fired 1 second later. 1 degree left, Chen ducked at the wrong moment. Any of those changes and Chen survived. But they did not change. Physics played out. Chen died. Random. Meaningless. True. Jackson struggled with that truth. He wanted agency, control, the belief that actions mattered, that choices determined outcomes. Diaz understood that belief kept soldiers sane, made them feel like they had some say in their survival, but it was an illusion, comfortable, necessary, but still false. Diaz had abandoned that illusion months ago, after seeing too many good soldiers die, too many bad soldiers survive. The correlation between skill and survival was weak, almost negligible. Luck dominated. Training helped. Experience helped. But luck decided. Diaz knew that, accepted it, made his peace. Jackson would too, eventually, if he survived long enough. The war was an efficient teacher. Lessons came fast, harsh, permanent. You learned or you died. Simple mathematics. Night fell. The squad rested. Ate. Reloaded. Prepared for tomorrow. Kowalski said he heard from Battalion. Martinez was on a ship. Heading to America. Home he would arrive in 2 weeks. Be discharged in 3. Martinez had survived. The promise was kept. Kowalski said Diaz should feel good about that. Diaz said he did. But he also felt hollow. Empty. Chen was dead. Morrison was dead. How many more would die before the war ended? How many more promises could Diaz keep? How many would he break? The mathematics haunted him. The ratios. The percentages. The cold calculus of survival. Diaz pushed those thoughts away. Focus on now. On surviving today. Tomorrow would bring new problems. New deaths. New mathematics. Deal with it then. Diaz took third watch. Midnight to 0200 hours. He sat in the darkness, alone with his thoughts. He thought about Mrs. Martinez. She would get his letter. Learn her son was safe. Coming home, she would cry. Relief, joy, gratitude. She would never know about the crater. The crawl, the terror, that was fine. Some things were better left unknown. Let her believe Ramon was lucky, that God protected him, that prayers worked, whatever helped her sleep. Diaz did not begrudge her that comfort. He envied it. Faith, certainty, the belief that someone was watching, that someone cared. Diaz had lost that faith, if he ever had it. Now there was just duty, promises. The code soldiers lived by: honor, loyalty, sacrifice. Those things were real, tangible, measurable. Faith was abstract. Diaz preferred concrete, something he could hold, something he could rely on. His watch ended. Jackson took over. Diaz tried to sleep. Failed, lay awake until dawn. Thought about Chen, about Morrison, about Martinez, about all the men he had known who were now gone. Dead, wounded, transferred, gone. The list grew every day. How long until Diaz was on that list? How long until someone else was lying awake thinking about him? Morbid thoughts. Unproductive. Diaz knew that. But he thought them anyway. The dark made introspection easy. Too easy. Dawn would bring action. Action pushed thoughts away. Diaz waited for dawn. It came at 0600 hours. Relief. The squad stirred. Another day. More missions, more fighting, more chances to die. Kowalski briefed them. They were being pulled off the line. Rest, refit, Replacement troops. The squad had been in combat for 23 days straight. They needed a break. Everyone needed a break. They would move to the rear, 10 miles. Real food, hot showers, clean uniforms. 3 days, then back to the line, back to the fighting. The cycle continued. Diaz welcomed the break. He needed it. Physically, mentally. 3 days to recover, to process, to remember who he was before the war, if that person still existed. Diaz was not sure anymore. They moved out at 0800 hours, marched to the rear. 10 miles took 4 hours. They were exhausted, slower than normal, but they made it. The rest area was basic: tents, cots, latrines. But it was safe, no gunfire, no mortars, no Germans. That made it paradise. Diaz showered. The hot water was incredible. It washed away the mud, the blood, the smell, not the memories. Those stayed, but physically Diaz felt human again. He put on a clean uniform, ate hot food, slept in a cot, real sleep, deep, dreamless. For the first time in weeks, it was glorious. He woke 16 hours later, 0600 hours the next day. He had slept through an entire day. His body had demanded it, taken what it needed. Diaz felt better, rested, stronger, ready for more. The break was working. He found the mess tent, ate breakfast, real eggs, bacon, toast, coffee. The food tasted amazing. Or maybe Diaz was just hungry. Or maybe anything tasted good after K-rations. He did not care. He ate, enjoyed it, felt grateful. Simple pleasures. They mattered, especially in war. Kowalski found him, said the Silver Star came through. Official ceremony in 2 days. Before they went back to the line, Diaz said he did not need a ceremony. Kowalski said it was not about need, it was about the army, about showing other soldiers what right looked like. Diaz would stand, accept the medal, shake the general's hand, be an example. Diaz said, "Fine." Kowalski said, "Good." Then Kowalski said something else. He said Diaz had changed the squad, inspired them, shown them that some things mattered more than survival, that honor, loyalty, promises. Those things defined who they were, made them more than just killers, made them soldiers, good ones. Diaz said he was just trying to keep a promise. Kowalski said that was exactly the point. The ceremony happened as scheduled. A general pinned the Silver Star on Diaz's chest, said nice things about bravery, selflessness, duty. Diaz stood still, accepted the words, the medal, the handshake. Then it was over. The squad congratulated him, slapped his back, said he deserved it. Diaz thanked them, meant it, but the medal felt heavy, not physically, emotionally. It represented Chen, Morrison, all the men who did not get medals, who died doing their duty, who never got recognized. Diaz wore the medal for them, for Martinez, for Mrs. Martinez, for every promise he tried to keep, for every soldier who tried to do right. The medal was not his. It belonged to all of them. He was just the one wearing it. They returned to the line the next day, back to Monte Cassino, back to the fighting. The mountain was still there, still German, still deadly. The grind continued. Diaz fell back into routine, patrols, attacks, defense, the cycle of infantry war. But something had changed inside him. The promise to Mrs. Martinez had reminded him why he was fighting, not for strategy, not for generals, not for territory, for people, for relationships, for honor. Those things mattered. They made the war bearable, made the deaths meaningful, or at least less meaningless. Diaz held on to that. It was all he had. It was enough. The squad fought on Monte Cassino for another month. Slow progress. Bloody. Expensive. But progress. They took the monastery on May 18th. The Germans withdrew, fell back to new positions. The Allies advanced. Rome fell soon after. The war in Italy continued. Diaz fought through it all. Survived, kept promises when he could, mourned when he could not. The war changed him, made him harder, colder, but also more human, more aware of what mattered. People, promises, honor, those things were real. Everything else was just noise. Diaz held on to them. Through all the fighting, all the death, all the horror, he held on, because that was what soldiers did. They held on, they kept going, they survived, and sometimes, if they were lucky, they kept their promises. Diaz had been lucky. Once he hoped he would be lucky again, but hope was dangerous. So he focused on duty, on the next mission, on surviving. One day at a time, that was all anyone could do. That was enough. The month of fighting blurred together. Days lost meaning, became indistinguishable, just continuous combat. Attack, defend, patrol, sleep when possible, eat when available, fight when necessary. Which was always, the German defense was stubborn, professional. They contested every yard, made the Allies pay for every foot. The cost was tremendous, thousands of casualties. American, British, French, Polish, Indian, soldiers from across the globe died on this Italian mountain for strategic value, a route to Rome, control of the peninsula. Generals understood the objectives. Soldiers just understood the cost. Diaz stopped thinking about objectives, focused on his squad, on keeping them alive. That was manageable, achievable, meaningful. Grand strategy was for officers. Soldiers dealt with reality. Mud, blood, death, survival. Simple, brutal, true. The fall of the monastery felt anticlimactic. After months of fighting, after thousands dead, the Germans withdrew during the night. Gone by morning, the Allies walked in, occupied the ruins, raised flags, declared victory. But it did not feel like victory, just exhaustion, relief, the absence of dying, not the presence of winning. Diaz stood in the ruins, looked at the destruction, wondered if it was worth it, could not find an answer, probably never would. Victory was abstract, survival was concrete. Diaz had survived, Martinez had survived, Jackson had survived, Kowalski had survived, Chen had not, Morrison had not, dozens of others had not. Historians would debate it, generals would claim success, soldiers would remember the friends who did not come back. Diaz knew his truth. He was alive. He had kept his promise to Mrs. Martinez. Everything else was secondary. Rome fell 2 weeks later. The Allies pushed north toward the Gothic line strongholds. The Germans continued fighting. The war in Italy continued without pause or mercy. Diaz continued with his squad. One mission became another. The daily routine of infantry war. He received a letter from Mrs. Martinez. 3 pages. She thanked him, said Ramon was home, recovering well, expected full recovery, would be discharged soon. She said Diaz was family, always would be. If he needed anything when he came home, she would provide it. She meant it. The sincerity came through. Made him feel something. Pride maybe. Satisfaction. The knowledge that he had done something right. In a war filled with wrong, with mistakes, with deaths. He had done one thing right. Saved one friend. Kept one promise. That mattered. Maybe it was small, maybe insignificant in the grand scheme, but to Mrs. Martinez it was everything. To Ramon it was life. To Diaz it was proof that soldiers were more than killers, more than weapons. They were people, with honor, with loyalty, with the capacity to do good. Even in hell, that was what separated soldiers from murderers. The code, the values, the commitment to something beyond survival. Diaz believed that, had to believe it. Without that belief, the war was just slaughter. With that belief, it was service, sacrifice, duty. Those words made the difference between meaning and chaos, between purpose and nihilism. Diaz chose meaning, chose purpose, chose to believe, because the alternative was unbearable.